I don't talk about death. I don't say anything about it. First, my direct mail piece is I have a question about your property. So indirect. I come at the situation completely sideways. I don't tell them I want to buy. I want to talk to anyone who opens that letter that's like just curious. What I love is I get to talk to the maybes, and those people who are a maybe, those are the ones that really fill my pipeline 6, 9 months down the road because I'm personable. I ask them good questions. I actually listen to them, and I get them to like me by the conversation that we have. Those, for me, end up being my most profitable deals.
Hey, welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Eat, Sleep, and Invest. I'm your host, Brian Driscoll. I'm here with Micah Nicholes. What's going on, Micah?
Not too much, just living the good life in Wisconsin.
So today we're going to talk about data. I really like data. So that's what Micah does. First, Micah, give us and everybody listening a little background on how you got into this space and what you do.
So 3.5 years ago, all I really knew about data was, opening an Excel sheet and using it to market to. I purchased a company that I own now, which is US Lead List, right in the height of COVID, crazy time, lots of bumps and hurdles to get over, but really, really cool experience. So from there, I mean, basically I saw a business that could, what's the best way to intrigue people? Give me a lifestyle where I got to integrate with something that I absolutely love, which is real estate. That's where it started. I kind of vetted over 100 companies during COVID when everything was locked down. Decided on this one. I was already doing real estate. I was already doing deals, and got this thing pushed through during probably the craziest social time in most people's lives. I don't know. I can't think of many crazier times in COVID, honestly. So made that happen, bought this business. And what was really cool to me is like, it was a digital business that was completely, run from paper. A couple 7-year-old guys ran this thing. And I saw like an opportunity to, one, just level up what we were doing in data. And then two, just make it a lot more automated and fun. And that way I could work on the more important things, which is like how to leverage more deals, create more value for our end clients.
All right, so let's talk about data, right? Because everybody talks about data and there's so many different definitions of data. What specifically are you guys doing in the data space for real estate investors?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, what our core competency is and what we're experts at is aligning death data with real estate ownership. And a lot of people get, kind of immediately jump to probate, and we work outside of probate. I mean, probate is a segment of what we're doing, but surviving spouses, trusts, and probate, all of those things are all indicators of a need to sell and a change in a physiological, emotional space around people owning a home. Like if a spouse passes away and they spent their whole life there with them, but they aren't willing to take care of it, they weren't, it's just there's a lot of things that change around that. So probate is a great way to get deals. I think that there's a broader set of data that you can look at to garner more deals and even to build up your pipeline in pre-deals and just staying connected with these folks. Because when we look at our data, a lead that we generate within 2 years, about 50% of these folks sell or transfer title to someone. So that could be a relative or it could be an investor like, the listeners here.
Interesting. So are you talking basically inherited leads
Yep.
versus, explain to everybody, what's the difference between an inherited lead versus a probate lead?
Yeah, I mean, so probate is a legal process, right? So it's basically dividing the assets of someone who has passed away that doesn't have a spouse. There's no one to basically automatically take over those assets. There's no tenant in common, which means there's no one else on title. So you have to go through this legal process, unless you have a trust. We don't have to get into that, but you go through this legal process where a judge basically divides all the assets that person owns. Could be real estate, could be financial accounts, amongst the beneficiaries. And so, it ends up being a situation where they want to turn that asset into money. It's a lot easier to divide $500,000 than it is to divide a house into multiple, parts, little portions. And so that's why, probate's a good lead. So that's what probate is. Inheritance is, it's more broad because we're just taking the event of death and we're looking at, I kind of went through this a little bit, but spouses, trusts, and the probate situation. So it's all three of those kind of combined.
And now what I'm hearing you say, because I know probate's a hot list for everybody, right? Because
Yep.
it's public record. So you're
Absolutely.
saying you can find people that passed away based on different data points that, number one, they might not be getting hit as much because it's not like they're just going to the county website or wherever you pull them from. You're being a little bit more creative to find them.
Yep. Yep. Absolutely. And I mean, folks can do this work themselves too. It's like we have a service, but it's like there's a process for everything. Obits are a good place to start. If you want to dig deeper, you got a VA, you want to put them in on do some work. But you have to basically manually look, and you have to do this for probates too when you're looking at those public records. Okay, they started a probate file. Do they actually own real estate? Just because they started probate doesn't mean that they have real estate assets that they're dispersing amongst those beneficiaries. And so you always have to check, in your county records, or, we actually do it nationally. So if someone passes away, we look and see if they own property anywhere in the United States, not just in their county, in that, little region, because we don't want to miss anything. Basically, it comes back to what you said is, how can you concentrate your marketing efforts to get the most value out of it? And a list where folks are not, being pressured and consistently being hit, and you can be the only person that has a voice in that transaction. There's bigger deals, there's larger spreads, and there's a higher chance of you doing a deal. So that's what we're going for.
Yeah, and that's interesting too, because there's different reasons people would want to sell. Like sometimes people want to sell just due to their husband passed away and they don't want to be in that place anymore. Or sometimes they inherited a house, like you were saying before, and they just don't want to fix it. Like just needs a lot of repairs. Like I bought some properties that someone passed away and the property's hammered. And maybe the wife has it, and it's just she doesn't want to do it. It's like, you know what, just take it from me. It's got memories. I don't want to do the work. So there is some gold in there, and you're helping them out too. It's like you're buying their house from them, giving them a cash offer for something that they would need to fix up and do all this stuff to get it ready for the MLS.
Yeah, and I'm actually kind of curious, with your company, like there's got to be a big percentage of properties and leads that you guys are generating that's just like, I inherited this. I got to get rid of it. Like I'm assuming you guys have, some kind of basic questionnaire when folks are coming in, and you kind of give that information. Like, is there a good like a percentage amount that you guys see, or?
It's a lower percentage. I'd probably put it down to like 8-10%. Like it's not super high.
Yeah.
It could be because of our marketing though, because our marketing's all targeting people with distressed properties, saying sell your house fast. We buy houses cash. So it targets like hoarder houses, but I'd probably say, yeah, roughly 8-10% would come through inherited. It's weird on the online space though, because 6 out of 10 leads are no good. Right. It's like they want too much money, or they just saw an ad and they're just morons. They're like, oh yeah, my house is worth 250, but I want 500.
The worst is when people click on those PPC, websites, and they're like, I want to buy a house. Can you, oh my God, you're like, what are we doing here? Like the message was otherwise. I don't understand. Why are you so lost? How do you get by in the rest of your life? It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, but you know what? That brings up a good point though, because I think every investor should have multiple marketing channels going. For example, we do pay-per lead, we do digital, but you never know. Elections are coming this year. Maybe Facebook or ad costs just go up through the roof, or maybe their algorithms change and it just becomes a platform you can't use, like Google changes or Facebook or whatever. So I look at investors, even like stuff like COVID happens. We don't know what's coming next, but it's like, what happens when the one channel you rely on no longer produces leads? You have to have mailers going. You have to have different things going at the same time. So I'm a believer in like have multiple things going that are profitable, even if it's not as big an ROI. Like some might not have as big an ROI, but if it's profitable, keep doing it because it's free.
Absolutely. Yeah. Or ideally you're making a little bit, maybe it's not that 10x that everyone talks about, but you're making 2, 3, 4x. And it's another way for you to diversify your business. Have an actual business, not like, oh, I do this part-time. Yeah, I totally agree. You should have more than one marketing channel for any business, for I'm sure yours and mine too, and especially in real estate, because things change and things pivot, especially in election year. Direct mail, it gets saturated during election year. So like, typically it doesn't perform as well. Right now, I just locked up a deal this morning, which I'm super jazzed about, but it's going well. People aren't getting pressed as much. And, if you deliver the right message, and I think that's important too. I wanted to talk to you about the right message. When we're, at least for our marketing and my own business, I don't talk about death. I don't say anything about it. I leave that dog lie. All of my marketing, first my direct mail pieces, I have a question about your property. So indirect. I come at the situation completely sideways. I don't tell them I want to buy. I want to talk to anyone who opens that letter that's like just curious. And I end up having to triage a lot, but what I love is I get to talk to the maybes, and those people who are a maybe, those are the ones that really fill my pipeline, 6, 9 months down the road because I'm personable. I ask them good questions. I actually listen to them, and I get them to like me by the conversation that we have. And those for me are end up being my most profitable deals because, it doesn't matter if they get a slightly higher offer. They like me. They want to work with me. And that reciprocity goes a really long way.
And that's huge too, because you're saying 9, 12 months down the road. Most investors are like, no, I want a deal next week. So, and it's good too, because you feed your pipeline. It might take 6 months, 9 months to start rolling, but then you have a consistent deal flow coming
Exactly.
after the fact if you're consistent with it. What's your follow up like? Like, what's your funnel look like?
So I hit them with basically 3 letters about 3 months apart. So I'm not pressing them really hard. I just basically staying in front of them, and they're really like high quality looking direct mail pieces. I'm a really firm believer that if you pay for the cheapest advertising, you get the cheapest leads, and those are the leads that typically don't make you any money and they waste your time. And so I pay for really high quality mail because it's the physical evidence that like I'm a real person. I'm going to show up. I'm going to do business. Anyway, so I hit them with 3 letters. The first one basically is exactly what I said. Hey, I have a question about your property. And then I get more direct from there. And then after those 3 letters, I just send them a postcard. Just a really simple postcard that just, has my branding on it. And just I'm just trying to stay in front of them because what death does, it's a constrictor, it's like it locks people's emotions up. They get a bunch of logistical things that they maybe have never done before or don't know how to deal with. And so, it just takes time for all that stuff to unravel. I oftentimes get a lot of calls where folks are just like, they're just dazed. They're just confused on the phone. They don't even know how to make a decision yet. And so, you know, I end up acting like a therapist a lot of times. Oh, wow, that's really hard. And then there's the flip side where, I've bought, several deals where I know someone died and I talk nothing about it through the entire transaction. But that's basically my funnel. And then I follow up with I text and cold call the spouses because they're warm. You can actually talk to them, and it's kind of just that revolving pool. And then all of my warm leads, I just have my acquisitions manager call them basically once a day if they're warm for a couple of weeks, and then after that, we turn into like once a week, and then eventually they just kind of get kicked out if we don't convert them.
Yeah. And that's interesting too, because you figure if somebody dies, there's different phases of what they're going to go through too. Because like some people could be grieving for a long time, not even able to make a decision. You know what I mean? Like a lot of people can't do that. So by hitting them over a period of time, you're just staying in front of them for when they're ready.
Yeah, and two, it's like I know that I piss a lot of people off, even with my indirect approach. I'm not talking about death. I'm not apologizing for the death. And I have clients who do that actually, and they make money, which is crazy to me. And they just field a bunch of super angry people. What are you doing? What the F is going on? I don't want to be that guy. That's not my mode. But it's a slow burn. For me, I like it because it just builds consistency. My pipeline stays full. And then I add other channels where, I'm doing PPC. I have cold callers that are working other lists, and there's deals there too. But I like having those warm leads in my pipeline that I know are going to convert eventually, but it's not a flash in the pan. It just takes time.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. So now you do this for investors. What's the best way for people to reach out to you? And how does it look? They just come to you and buy a list, or how's that look?
So part of our company culture is like we only sell each county 3 times. There's a chance that your area may not be available and you have to get on a wait list. But as far as reaching out to me, our website's probably the best way to at least go and peruse what we do, www.usleadlist.com. Otherwise, you can reach out to me directly. I can drop my email on here. It's Micah, Micah, at usleadlist.com. Yeah, those are probably the 2 easiest channels. I'm not super active on social. It's not my world really, but yeah, I think that's the best way. One other thing I did want to talk about, and I think it's important, is that these niche lists are really interesting because it's a giant lever that you can pull to basically concentrate your ROI. That we've been kind of talking about that, circling around that for a little bit, but one thing that we do is that in every, marketing channel, there's kind of the 80-20 split. It's like 20% of the people are going to end up making you 80% of your money. And when we started playing around with this, trying to figure out who was who in this, we found that, 10 to 20% of folks are landlords in a way. They have a small portfolio or a really large portfolio. And we started overlapping additional properties on top of these. And so, if someone passes away and they've got, 10 rental houses, we kind of align that data for you. And it was crazy when I really focused on that segment of the group, people who were passing away, like we started buying bundles of deals rather than just a single one-off transaction. And again, we fill our pipeline. We actually approach those folks a little bit differently. We're calling them more. We're reaching out to relatives directly. It's just a little more aggressive approach. But that part of our list has been the largest moneymaker for me in my own business. I was talking about this on another podcast the other day. We just closed a $250,000 assignment on what was a couple groups of properties together on 4 acres that we got entitled for multifamily. And it was just exactly what I said. It was this guy who had, a few properties all together. And, I had to door knock the guy. I wrote him a letter, just all these things, and finally got it done. But for me, like that's, concentrating your effort on where you're going to get paid the most is one of the highest ROI activities that any business owner can do. And so getting the right information and surrounding yourself with people like you, I'm sure you bring on tons of people on here that are just like trying to deliver value to the people you work with and the people that are listening to this. But for me, in my own business, if there was just one thing that I would focus on, it would be that we've made, not working crazy hard, more money chasing down these basically dead landlords. And that's been a boon for us.
That makes a lot of sense. I'm glad you brought that up because you're right. It's like, where can you spend your effort and have the biggest return? It's like, okay, I can go find a seller that owns 1 property, or I can find a seller that owns 20. It's still the same process. And it may be a little bit extra legwork getting to the family that has more properties, but you're right. You get one deal and it's 20 times return.
Exactly. Yep. Yeah, that's exactly it.
Let's talk about this before we go too. You're at your clients. What do they look like? Like, what's your avatar in the ideal investor as a client for you?
Well, I think, the first thing is probably the easiest. Sometimes it's easiest to say what they are by what they're not. And so what they're not are folks who think that, this is a magic list. So it's not a magic list. There's still work that goes involved. On my side, I'm paying $3,500 per contract that I'm getting. And so it's not free. You have to put money in. But, that said, the deals that I'm doing, my average size, we're over 40K per deal size with that. So, it's good to talk about how that works. But as far as avatar goes, we like the people who are doing at least, 5 deals in a year. So they've got capital. They understand kind of how to fill their funnel and what it means to have a business. And anywhere above that, we also work with realtors and like / investor combos, which I think right now is a really interesting scenario with the, all of the stuff happening with the settlement and the Realtors Association. And then, so investors, wholesalers, and realtor investor combos. That's kind of the scenario. At least doing, 5 deals a year is who typically we find the most value for and to work with.
Okay, cool. So I label them as seasoned investors, like guys that if you get someone on the phone that wants to sell your house, you actually know how to do it.
Exactly.
Not just learning. And just learning is great too, but I always figure people learning, I would recommend door knocking, things like that, and just go out and pay with sweat. Don't give anybody your money until you figure the process out, and then you buy your time back.
Absolutely. Yeah. And until you can know how to paint a picture of pain for a seller who's not quite there yet, it's not worth putting, money on the fire, or, paying to, make the fire bigger with money until you can, start doing that in a consistent way. Getting
Yep.
people motivated and getting contracts, like that's a process that happens internally on your team, and no magic list, no lead, even on your side, no leads will do that for you if you don't have a system and kind of the philosophy and education around that within your company culture.
Exactly. Hey, give everybody your website again to reach out.
Absolutely. It's www.usleadlist.com. Happy
Perfect.
to chat. Email again one more time, Micah@usleadlist.com.
All right, cool. We'll have that in the show notes too for everybody listening. Hey, Michael, last question. What's the top book you'd recommend?
Top book that I recommend. Jeez, I'm gonna have to go with. I just read $100 Million Leads. Are you familiar?
Is that for Hermosi?
Yep. Yeah.
That was a good book.
Great book. It's it's centered around business, but it's as investors, we're in the marketing business, and so if you know how to fill your pipeline full of people who want to sell their house, like you're going to crush it. And that's the same with business. And so it just kind of cracked the code on a lot of really easy wins that like kind of stop the leaks in both of my businesses, on the real estate side and on US Lead List side. So I really appreciate that.
Cool. That is a good one.
I want to hear yours now.
And my top book's Richest Man in Babylon.
Okay, I love that book.
That's number one, and Think and Grow Rich is number two.
Sweet, man. Yeah, I get my kids to listen to the Babylon once a year with me. It's like it's full of so many good anecdotes, and like it's told as a story. It's fun with kids.
It is, yeah. It's a good one. It breaks down wealth to such a simple level.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Hey, well, thanks for coming on, man. We appreciate you.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate your time, and seriously, it's a pleasure to get to hang out with you for a little bit.
Good stuff. Hey, everyone, thanks for listening. Until next time, get out there, crush it, close some deals. We'll see you guys.